Kırmızı. Good morning, Chairperson.
Morning, Mr. Matonsi. How are you?
Yes, Chairperson, is
Recording in
exactly 9
progress.
o'clock. Dr. Twalo was having challenges connecting into the meeting, but we do have enough members to start with the meeting.
I am in, Eddie. With the
Oh,
new-
you are in. Okay, no,
Yes.
thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Matonsi and Dr. Twalo, Mr. Adams, and the honorable members, the Minister and the Director General, and all the colleagues in attendance.
Chairperson, you froze a little bit. Chairperson,
brief reports that have been presented. Mr. Matonsi?
yes, I was saying you froze a little bit. We could not hear you. Maybe if you can take off your video, then we'll be able to get the good hearing.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much for that caution. Welcome, honorable members, and greetings. Greetings to the Minister, Director General, and all officials in attendance. Today we'll have a short meeting in terms of the agenda that is before us, and want to welcome you all. The Minister, yesterday we observed one of the media component focused on the border management or porous borders. We want to also appreciate and note the issues we raised on the conversation that has been taking place yesterday, but also want to confirm that the work that the Border Management Authority is continuously doing demonstrates a positive outcome, as some of the members of the community have been raising. But we're caution on the critics that are rising without. I want to appreciate the work that has been demonstrated so far by the Border Management Authority. Where there are weaknesses, we'll have to collectively work to resolve them, but mobilize everybody to assert its independence and time to implement its program. I'm going to invite Mr. Matonsi to run us on the second item, apologies, and introduce members who are here.
Good morning, members. Then in terms of apologies, I've got an apology from Ms. van der Merwe. And then Mr. Mkhale is just a late arrival. You said he'll arrive around 10:30. Then the other apologies from Ms. Mudisa. She's here in the meeting, but it will be an early departure for her she's coming down to Cape Town. That's all in terms of apologies. Members and Chairperson, yesterday, Chairperson, the research unit sent you a letter informing you of the appointment of a committee researcher. We have met with him as staff last week Friday. I would like to introduce him. Is Mr. Lebohang Ndaba. He just started working with Parliament. I would like him also to show his video, if so that members can also see his face. That's all from myself, Chairperson. Mr. Ndaba, if you can show your face.
Good morning,
Chairperson, that is Mr. Ndaba, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Ndaba, and congratulations for working with us. So hope that we'll work together with the committee members and also the department on the work of Parliament and also the work of the department. Honorable Lekhwasa?
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay. Honorable Lekhwasa, I see your hand.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, I'm going to request that I leave the meeting at 10:30.
Noted. Can we then invite the minister to, if there's any apology, introduce this team? Minister?
Thank
Deputy
you,
Minister?
Chair. No, Chairperson, I'm here.
Yeah, thank you, Minister.
Oh, thank you, Chairperson and honorable members. Can I give to the DG to introduce his team, please? On my side, the Deputy Minister, Ren Jabulo Nzuza, is here. Can the DG introduce the rest of the team, please, DG?
Thank you, DG.
Good morning, Minister. Good morning, Chairperson and honorable members. I'll also terminate the video for connectivity. So joining us this morning, Minister, DM, and the Chairperson and honorable members are the following. One is the acting DDG for Immigration Services, Mr. Mudiri Matthews. And then the CFO, Mr. Gordon Hollamby. And then DDG for Civic, Mr. Thomas Sigama. And the acting DDG for HR, Tampane Molifes-Fanyezo. And then there's also the support team from the ministry. I see Madieta Magua, and then the Sia Koza, Muzi Njoko, and then Tian, and also Sipati Mashila joining us this morning. So that's the team from our side, Chairperson. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Minister. Mr. Matonzi, I'll request that we deal with item number 5 and 7 at one. They will start with item number 7, and the number 5 will be the last point. I've invited colleagues, Dr. Twalo, and I'll request that you start with just to brief us on the study 2, and then we release because he has to attend other commitments. So, Mr. Matonzi, it means we'll then invite Honorable Dr. Twalo, who is the head of the committee. Then we come to the item number 3 by the Minister, State Capture, and then we interact on that. Then we invite the Minister on item number on annual performance and other committee issues. Then members deliberate. Can I get a sense of that amendment program, members, if it will be okay with yourself?
Supported, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Pile. Any seconder?
Seconded, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Ross. I don't think there's any objection on this administrative process. Thank you very much. Dr. Twalo?
Good morning, Chairperson. Thank you. Good morning, Chairperson and members of the committee and the guest to the committee as well. Chairperson, thank you for giving me this opportunity at this point in time, and so that I can give some feedback with regards to the trip, international trip to Brazil by the committee, and also just to give you feedback in terms of what we have done so far. I just want to initially say that, can you hear me, Chair?
Yeah, proceed. Yeah, we can hear you. Thank you, Doctor.
Okay, thank you. I just want to say, Chair, that myself, Eddie, Adam, and Geshrin from the NCOP side, we have met and discussed the issues related to the organization of the trip to Brazil. And in our discussions, we noted the difficulties that we are experiencing at this point in time. However, we were going to actually proceed and start with the preparations as well. What we have decided on, Chair, is that with your permission, in fact, Chairperson, and your approval, that the committee should actually be going to Brazil by the end of November, that last week of November, ending on the 1st of December. as well. We have taken a few things into consideration, especially with regards to the budget process, the BRRR process that is going to take place. And we felt that perhaps the end of November is the better time for the committee to actually go over to Brazil. And we also consulted with our embassy with regards to those dates. And Eddie would actually give feedback when it comes to that. At the moment, Chairperson, it is still all the members that were initially approved to go and one staff member as well from the NA side. NCOP side, the same members will be going as well. So with your permission, Chairperson, I would like to give over to Eddie just to inform you about what we have done since that meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Doc. Yeah, since we met on the 6th of September with Doc, as she indicated, on the very same day, I wrote to the embassy to give them a suggestion of the dates of the 24th until the 2nd of December, 24th being on a Friday, leaving South Africa, and then starting with the official. Oh, sorry, not November. I'm sorry. Yeah, leaving on the 24th of November, and then starting with the official program on the 27th of November, which will be Monday, until that Friday, and leaving Brazil on the 2nd of December, which will be Saturday. So I since then wrote to them to indicate those are the days that we are suggesting. And then I requested them if they could give me the feedback of the availability of the stakeholders that side by Friday last week. They only came back yesterday to me to say the Tribunal Superior Electoral, which is the equivalent of the IEC, they will be available to meet with us on those days. But they were quiet in terms of the Brazilian parliament, especially the committees that deals with home affairs or electoral issues. And then yesterday, I wrote back to them to say, when the committee is there, they will also need to meet with their counterparts. So I'm still waiting for that feedback from them in terms of the delegation meeting with the counterparts while in Brazil. But with the TSE, which is the equivalent of the IEC, they are available to accommodate us around those days, Chair. That's my update, Chairperson.
Okay, thanks very much. Members, I just wanted us to get update. I've requested Dr. Twalo that she must then take over the preparation and brief the committee on the issues, coordinate both sittings of the NCOP in terms of secretariat. We'll not discuss the matter. Dr. Twalo, thanks. I think in the next, this week, we'll have a main call to discuss some of the issues. I wanted you to brief members of the committee on the progress. Thank you very much for also for this opportunity to come and brief members of the committee. You will update us in the next session, Dr. Twalo.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. We'll do so.
Okay. Thank you very much, Minister. Can you then introduce the report, the presentation? Thank you. Minister, what's happening? Deputy Minister?
DG. I mean, sorry. Sorry, Chairperson. My things were a little bit stuck here. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, noted, Minister. You can proceed. Thank you.
Yeah, Chairperson, we are going to present a report on the implementation of the Home Affairs recommendations as they emerge from the State Capture Commission, the Zondo Commission. You are aware that in the recommendation of the Zondo Commission, several government departments have to do certain things in terms of those recommendations. Ours in Home Affairs is mostly about the issues pertaining to elections. And as such, the Presidency and the Secretariat of Cabinet requested the Department of Home Affairs on the 15th of December 2022 to share an implementation plan for the actions as per the President's response to the recommendations of the Zondo Commission. Now, Chairperson, as is always agreed, that we should present to you the documentation 48 hours before the sitting. We did so on Sunday. But Chairperson, I realized that we did so on the basis of the summarized version as coming from the Presidency and the Secretariat. In other words, a version that interprets what the Zondo Commission was saying. Last night, I asked the DG to take the recommendations directly and see if he can infuse them here, because I don't want to assume that members still remember or even read in full the Zondo Commission, the Zondo Commission recommendations. So I want them to come here verbatim, so that when people debate, they don't debate on the basis of a summarized version or an interpretation of anybody else, even if it might be the Cabinet Secretariat. So for that reason, what the DG will present to you might differ a little bit from what we gave you on Sunday, which you might be having in front of you. It's not a lot of slides, and the differences won't affect the progress. They will just be explaining to you in Zondo's weight or the Commission's weight exactly what they've said. So I'll give over to the DG to give the presentation. Thank you very much.
DG?
Thank you, Minister, and thank you to yourself, Chairperson, and Deputy Minister, and honorable members. I think while Moses is uploading the presentation, just by way of background, I think the Minister has already sketched the background. Are you winning, Moses? Moses, are you winning? Chairperson, I'm not sure if you can see Moses' screen from your side. Just want to establish that first. If we can have it on a slide mode. Let's start with the first slide. We can go back to the first slide. I'm not sure whether it's you, Mr. Salmons. All right, thank you so much. So Chairperson, we're presenting on the implementation plan of the Department of Home Affairs arising from the President's response to the recommendations of the State Capture Commission. Chair, you'll recall that it's almost a year. By October, it will be a year since that response was provided. So this slide just basically gives you an outline of the presentation, which will focus on the purpose, the background, and then the actions that were assigned to the Department of Home Affairs, and then the recommendation. So slide number 3 says the purpose of this presentation is to present the implementation plan of the Department of Home Affairs for actions arising from the President's response to the recommendations of the State Capture Commission. So just by way of background, Chairperson, I think the Minister has already stated, if we can move to slide number 4, both the Presidency has set up a steering committee, and that steering committee is led by DG in the Presidency. It comprises a number of government departments. It comprises the Department of Justice, the SIU, the NPA, COCTA, GCIS, National Treasury, SAPS, and those governments departments that are relevant for the work or the recommendations indicated by the Commission. And that committee has been meeting quite regularly. Our last meeting was actually yesterday from 3 to 6. Now, this steering committee, immediately after the report was handed over to the Presidency, studied the report and requested all government departments that were referred to in the report to share an implementation plan for actions as per the President's response to the recommendations of the Judicial Commission of Inquiry into allegations of state capture, corruption, and fraud. In this regard, as the Minister has said, what we did, which I think I should have said upfront, we sent through an amended or a revised presentation based on the exact recommendations emanating from the Commission's work. So you'll note that there are 2 actions that are assigned to the Department of Home Affairs. So the first one, which is referred to in the Cabinet Secretariat report, is that we need to amend the funding of the Representatives Political Parties Act. You'll note, Chairperson, this is not an exact wording in the Zonal Commission. It emanates from the second one, which is reforms to the electoral system on page 53 of the report, actually. Now, emanating from the reforms of the electoral system, the consequential amendment will therefore be the amendment to the funding of the Representative of Political Parties Act. So we've started submitting our required implementation plan, and we have provided them in terms of the timelines that they set out, the closeout report on the 6th of September. Of course, there are action items that will be ongoing, such as the consequential amendment. It does not necessarily mean the work has come to an end. If we can move to the next slide. So the next slide, basically, it's that consequential amendment. You'll recall, Chairperson, that both Advocate Butlander and DPA have provided a legal opinion on consequential amendments that emanate from the Electoral Amendment Act. We can move to the next one. Now, the next one on slide number 6 basically details exactly as the Minister said, verbatim, what the Commission said. So the first one was that there should be a proposal, there should be consideration given to making necessary constitutional amendments to ensure that the President of the country is elected directly by the people, aimed at ensuring that anyone who becomes President of the country does so on the basis of their own popularity with the people, not on the basis that if voters vote for a particular party, that party will make him or her president. So that's the first recommendation that's made. The second one, it says it is recommended that Parliament should consider whether introducing a constituency-based but still proportionally representative electoral system that will enhance the capacity of members of Parliament to hold the executive accountable. And then it goes further, Chair, to say if Parliament considers that introducing a constituency-based system have this advantage, it is recommended that it should consider whether, when weighed against any possible disadvantage of this advantage justifies amending the existing electoral system. Now, the last area says it is recommended that serious consideration be given to the majority recommendations on electoral reforms as given in the report of the Electoral Task Team of January 2003. You'll recall, Chair, that that task team was led by Dr. Van Zyl Slabbert, who was the chairperson. If you were to look at the report itself, it does make reference to a number of electoral task teams, including, of course, the committee that was mandated by the minister, including the committee that was led by former President Kgalema Motlanthe. So all those references are made. However, I think by the time the report was published, the work that was led by Mr. Vale Musa had not been concluded yet. Now, this slide then gives you a progress update in terms of what is it that has been done to date. With regards to the first proposal, which states that consideration should be given to making necessary constitutional amendment to ensure that the president of the country is elected directly by the president, you'll recall that this committee processed the electoral amendment bill. And once you were done, you sent it through to Parliament, and Parliament then approved. It was then referred to NCOP. And the NCOP, if you recall, Chairperson, inserted a clause on the bill to establish an advisory committee which will investigate and advise the minister as well as Parliament regarding electoral reforms. And they say that that work needed to be done in consultation with the Electoral Independent Commission, or the IEC. So that work, of course, will be the task that this committee will have to do. The second one, it is recommended that Parliament should consider whether introducing a constituency-based but still proportional representative electoral system to enhance the capacity of members of Parliament to hold the executive accountable. Again, Chair, this is work that the Advisory Committee on Electoral Reforms will be seized with, obviously in consultation with the IEC and Parliament. And the same one that speaks to the report of the Electoral Task Team of January 2003. I suppose as part of the literature review, this Advisory Committee on Electoral Reforms will look at all the reports that have been done with regards to the electoral reforms to date. So that's with regards to action number 2, Chairperson. Now, if you move to the next slide. Now, the next slide basically speaks to how is this work being monitored. At the highest level, Chairperson, you will recall the President has appointed what is referred to as the National Anti-Corruption Advisory Council. This is led by Professor Kachalia. And this council, it's a multi-sectoral partnership which looks at advocacy and action against fraud and corruption. So they do the M&E with regards to this work. Now, the presidency as a team that's looking at the M&E on the implementation of these recommendations. We have provided our implementation plan, and we regularly report to this steerco that has been established under the auspices of the presidency. And to date, we have provided 2 progress reports. The last one, of course, was just to indicate that these are the next steps in terms of the work that will be done. So I think we are of the view that given the work that we've done to date, we have been able to respond to issues that have been raised. Of course, the work on electoral reforms is not yet concluded. So the next slide, which is slide number 9, it's really a recommendation that the Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs notes the presentation. And of course, the last slide, it's a thank you slide. Thank you so much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, DG, for the brief report. Members, I'm going to invite Honorable Mulekwa, Honorable Lekwaze, Honorable Ruos, Honorable Pillay, Honorable Mudisimta, if she's not logged on out. Is Honorable Mohale joined, Mr. Matonzi?
Not yet. He hasn't joined yet. He said we'll join around 10:30.
Okay, it's fine. In that order.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. And let me also appreciate their presentation has been presented, Chairperson. Chairperson, I just want to make comment on action 2 on that the president of the country should be directly elected by the people. Chairperson, I think we should do a thorough investigation with the countries that are already using the system, and also check the advantages and disadvantages, and also whether there are political stabilities in those countries. Because this matter is very complex, Chairperson. We can't just, I know that is a recommendation, but we must be able to analyze most of the situation in the countries that are using those systems. And once we have a concrete report on this matter, it's then that the department or the portfolio committee can be able to decide whether to go this route on or the other way, Chairperson. So I think it's important so that we should not just rush on the implementation of this action 2 because of the report of the state capture. We know that it's very important to implement the state capture report, but we must also find fact that will give us the idea on how to do that, Chairperson. But otherwise, Chairperson, I take note of the report as being presented. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Muleka, for your contributions. Honorable Kwasa. Honorable Ross.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I just really have a question on slide 7, where it talks about the Advisory Committee on Electoral Reforms that will be finalized following discussions with the IEC. And then the department gives a due date of November 2024. My understanding is that in the Act, it says that the Electoral Reform Consultation Panel must be established within 4 months of commencement of the Act, which to my understanding is the 19th of June. So that means it must be established by the middle of October. And the Act says, I think it's section 23(9)(b), that this must be done in consultation with the Commission, as it says in here, but also after approval by the National Assembly. And only then can 9 members to the panel be appointed from the nominated persons. So I just want to understand where we are in this process, and what the next steps are, including the involvement of Parliament in the appointment of this Electoral Reform Consultation Panel. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Honorable Kanyele in attendance? Honorable Pillay.
Thank you very much, Chair. Let me greet all honorable members and colleagues that are on the platform. Chair, mine is just to note the report and also the progress that has been made. I just have one request: if the reports that the DG has spoken about can be also shared with the committee, or even in the form of a brief or update in terms of keeping us up to date in terms of the progress that they've made, or the report submitted. I know he's mentioned something of a closeout report, and perhaps if that can also be shared. And then, Chair, in respect of the panel, I know that they have that date that they've mentioned, but what is the roadmap in terms of achieving this and ensuring that that process is also complete? Otherwise, Chair, the report is noted. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable. Okay, thanks very much, members, for your contributions.
Chairperson. Sorry, Chair.
Mr. Matonsi?
There's, Ms. Kanyile, she has raised
Honorable Kanyile? Honorable Kanyile?
Thank you, Chairperson. Greetings to you and all the colleagues on the platform. I'm also noting the report and the progress that has been made thus far, and I have been largely covered by Honorable Rose. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. members. And thanks the DG for the presentation. I think we also note that there's a process that we have adopted in line with Honorable Ross' questions, particularly on the recommendations that the state captures raised in relation to directly appointing the president. And I think Honorable Molekwa has tried to express that that view. And the understanding was that that process will be deposited, as I think outlined in the process that will be established by the minister, the team that will be looking on the methods of the new methods on the electoral system. I think we also note progress that has been made in relation to reflect on the work or recommendation that is undertaken in the state capture process. I'll invite the DG to comment, and I'll invite Deputy Minister and the Minister, then we stand out this item. DG?
No, thank you so much, Chairperson. I think I note the comments by Honorable Molekwa. I suppose that's the work of the advisory committee in terms of investigating other electoral systems. And then Honorable Ruos, I think towards the end, the Minister will respond to some of those issues. But safe to say that we have received, in terms of the roadmap, as Honorable Pillay has asked, nominations have been received in line with the Gazette that have been issued by the department, and they're currently being processed. And then, of course, we will definitely share the reports with the committee. That's the last question from Honorable Pillay. But thank you so much, Honorable Members, and yourself, Chairperson.
Thank you, Deputy Minister.
No, I'm covered, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you, DM. Minister?
Thank you, Chair. No, thank you, Chair. The response for Honorable Molekwa, the DG has already given it. This is the work that is going to be done by this committee. Even in the report itself by Zondo, he raises several things that it's not really just a straightforward thing that Parliament can just wake up and say the president must be elected directly. He says it must be looked into and balanced with the advantages and disadvantages. For instance, one of the things they are raising is that if the president is not elected by Parliament, then Parliament no longer has got an oversight or control over him because he's elected by the public, and Parliament must weigh that. So that's why, Chairperson, the NCOP, and we finally accepted that when it came to National Assembly, recommended that we put up this panel. If you remember what is in the Act, that panel is going to do extensive, very extensive investigations around the world and present them to Parliament so that Parliament is spoiled for choice with advantages and disadvantages while they are having time. Unlike during the time process when we were enacting this amendment, that there was no time. I want to emphasize, because there are many people who believe that we are afraid or we are not willing or there's no political will for electoral reforms. If you read the Zondo Commission, you'll realize that it needs extensive work, and there was just no time within these 24 months given by the Constitutional Court. Honorable Rios, I'm not very sure about the dates and all that, but if you remember, we agreed that this must be done 4 months immediately after the bill has been passed. And the bill has been passed. We issued an advert for members of the public, as the Act says, to start making the nominations. The closing date was the end of August, 19 days ago. And the nominations have been tagged and presented. We're going to study them very thoroughly together with the IEC. Unfortunately, we've been missing a date for a meeting, because you are aware that from the 1st of September until now, it has been very, very hectic. We are not able to find a common date with the IEC to meet and do this work, but the panel is going to be finally chosen by, by a recommendation from Parliament. In other words, the names will have to be approved by Parliament. The IEC and myself, in terms of the Act, are just going to be working on the names, maybe researching them and shortlisting and finding out who qualifies in terms of, if you remember, there were criteria there, who qualifies and who doesn't. Then we'll bring them over to Parliament, who will make a final recommendation and for the minister to choose the committee. So that's where we are at the moment, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you, DG, for update report. The committee notes the report. Mr. Matonsi, can you now move to the item that is being agreed upon? Yeah, the minister will deal with the item number 7 and number 5. You can start with 7 and then deal with the committee outstanding queries. Then members will deliberate on that. Minister?
Let me understand. Do we start with number... Did you say we start with number 5 or number 7? I heard you say jump in number 5.
Yeah, we've amended the agenda. Mr. Matonsi did not change it. That's why I'm referring you to the items that you must start with.
Okay.
You can start with the queries either way, but the 2 items at once, then we deliberate.
Okay. I'll go over the, I think the DDG, acting DDG of Immigration will present, will make the presentation to you, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister.
Mr. Mudiri Matthews.
Good morning, honorable members, Minister, Deputy Minister, DG colleagues. So this first presentation is on the status of queries sent to the department by portfolio committee members. With your permission, could we pass the outline, because it'll be the title on each slide. So firstly, the purpose is to provide, as indicated, the portfolio committee with information on status of queries. In bullet 2, the department acknowledges its responsibility to ensure all queries are addressed in line with the mandate of the department. We have put internal processes to ensure queries received are attended to timelessly, with the exception of matters that require further investigations and or additional information from relevant clients. We do have an internal process to ensure inquiries received from committee members are addressed. The DG office in Cape Town serves as the interlink between the department and committee members in dealing with the referral of these queries. Department is committed to clearing such cases, which are currently still pending. On the next slide, we give an outline of the number of queries that we've received. It's numbered at 750. This is from the period of the 1st of April 2023 to the 15th of September 2023. Out of 750 queries, 534 have been finalized. We remain with 216 pending and that are still undergoing processing by the department. The outstanding matters are receiving attention. Given the complexity in some cases, they do require investigations. There are a range of issues from your permitting to investigations, IDs, and a number of other areas. On the next slide, we give the categories. The majority, in terms of immigration services, are on permanent residence permits. There's 108, temporary permits, 48, appeals, 9, and then proof of permanent residence, there are 4 cases. And within civic services, there's 47. 6 relate to unabridged death certificates, marriage unabridged, 24, births unabridged involved, 13, personal amendments, 3, and duplicates, 1. The committee is invited to note this presentation in conclusion. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Can we now proceed with the second presentation?
Thank you, Chairperson. So the second presentation, Honorable Chair, relates to the non-APP temporary residence statistics and the non-APP permanent residence statistics. Again, we can pass the outline because there will be the title of each slide. I think we've stated what the purpose is, to present on the non-APP targets. In terms of background, the annual performance plan temporary residence targets are 3 in the areas of critical skills, permanent employment, work holder for 5 years, and then we have 19 non-annual performance plan temporary residence visas. There will be a breakdown of the categories. Similarly, with permanent residence, there are 3 critical business and general work, which are in the annual performance plan. Then there's 7, which are non-performance plan related. On this slide, slide 5, we are giving an outline of each type of non-APP temporary residence visa and the statistics. So if you go down this slide, you'll see we also list the relevant sections. So at the top, exchange visas under Section 22 are very few. There's 8 of them. But then if you look at from relative visa, these are Section 18, up to the relative visa spouse. These numbers go up, with the highest being relative visa spouse being at 14,704. Then your Section 11 visitors visa, which is your Section 11.1, which provides for the DG to issue a visit visa. Then you have these categories, B1, B2, 3, B4. These are where the categories of visas that allow for someone holding a visit visa to work. So people on academic sabbaticals, charitable work, working for a foreign organization or broadcaster. So those middle ones, the 11 ones, Roman 1 to 4, basically are different to an 11.2, which says that a person holding a visit visa cannot conduct work. But the middle part, the Roman numeral part, does have a proviso that you can work under this particular visa. Then the bulk of the TR, non-APP temporary residence visas, are your Section 11.6 visas. Basically, these are a spousal visa where someone can get a visa as a spouse and have the right to work, because a relative visa spouse doesn't provide for that. So these are the bulk of the non-APP stats. It's the Section 11.6 followed by the relatives visa spouse. Then in terms of appeals, we give a breakdown of the total number of appeals received since 2014. Currently, total outstanding temporary residence visa appeals, Section 8.4 DG level appeals, we're at 5,679. Then at ministerial, which is 8.6, they're 2,002, making a total of 7,681. That's the status with temporary residence. And then on permanent residence, the next slide on slide 6. Again, the highest number of the non-APP permanent residence stats are the spouse, Section 26B spousal, 24,437. Then you've got minor dependents, which follows at 8,368. In total, with all the others, it's 42,835. But the breakdown just gives a clear indication of what are the higher numbers in terms of the overall sections on these statistics. Then in terms of appeals, at the bottom, we give a breakdown of what's been received since 2014. In terms of DG appeals, it's received 13,806 since 2014, finalized 10,401. Total outstanding is 3,405. With the ministerial appeals, we received since 2014, 1,684, total finalized 1,154, with an outstanding amount of 530. So overall appeals, in terms of permanent residents, outstanding is 3,935. On the next slide, we are giving an indication of the situation with regard to overstay appeals. So these are persons who've overstayed their visa and are declared undesirable on departure. We have 314 of these currently pending out of 1,063 that have been received, with 749 finalized. Next slide, we give an account of the capacity and how we are intending to utilize the capacity to help us to deal with the non-APP TRs and permanent residents. Essentially, we are going to use officials from within the Immigration Services branch. We are going to take 5 officials from the Inspectorate, from Asylum Seeker Management, from our Foreign Office Coordination Unit, the Permitting Functional Support, to capacitate the number of officials dealing with the non-APP targets. It'll add to a current capacity of 18 officials that are doing the adjudicating of non-APP targets. So we'll have 50 officials that are now going to be doing a set number of non-APP targets on a weekly basis. We're also going to be making use of officials, our officials that were based in our foreign missions. We are going to utilize 15 of those officials to also add capacity to the permitting unit. We're also going to involve senior management from within immigration to also assist with current operations. We're also adding the utilization of provincial officials. The support from provincial level will look at the high number of spouse applications, the 14,704, and then the relative minor child applications. They're going to do the adjudicating and approval at a provincial level and forward for printing and dispatch to head office. So we're going to be utilizing provinces in these 2 categories of visas, which will add a capacity in addition to what has been mentioned above. Next slide, we are indicating that the additional measures to address the non-APP targets, the strategy of the previous slide, coupled with reducing quality levels in the delegations, will improve the output to a degree. We believe that if we can reduce the levels of quality assurance from 6 as a start, maybe 6 to 4, and then look at whether it's 3, where we may have the adjudicator, then a senior manager, then the final decision. We will be looking at that as well. So the delegations for final decision-making on permits and visas is proposed to be taken to lower levels. So on some of the temporary residence visas, it would be an adjudicator, an assistant director. The critical skills, we know it could be at a director level, but we're trying to just streamline the process. And then, but also to take account of the level of risk in the particular visa, specifically the 11.6 relative visa. Next slide. So in terms of assisting us to push with the number of cases, one of the challenges that we face is the issue of verification, particularly the bank statements, other information, verification of addresses, qualifications. So we've got partnerships with the following institutions: your banks, the SABRIC, Banking Association of South Africa, to verify statements and other banking details. We're trying to find a way of streamlining it so that we can get feedback more or less as soon as we've sent the request through, but with a very quick turnaround time. the moment we send an email to individual banks, it can be a week, it can take some time, but we're trying to get to a point where this can be a seamless process. With the South African Qualifications Authority, there is a partnership we have when it comes to recruitment and verifying qualifications. We're looking at that as well as something that we utilize to a greater degree. The company's Intellectual Property Commission, verifying businesses and ownership, verifying the investment outlay. That's something that we're also looking at streamlining in partnership with these organizations. Then, of course, with SALGA, verifying statements with regard to properties, residential address, cohabitation issues, a water and lights bill can always confirm who resides at particular places and verify that addresses are genuine. And of course, with trade, industry, and competition, to verify the approval of the businesses to be established by a person who's wanting to establish a business, to look at the viability, to look at it's in the national interest, and then of course with whether it's correctly registered. And the next slide. So this slide looks at the operations monitoring tools for the non-APP visas and permits. So we will be monitoring the output per office on a daily basis through operational managers meetings in terms of what has each official done. Daily operational meetings will also report on challenges experienced. Where are the blockages? Is it on the verification? Is it other competing priorities, so that we're able to report on non-performance and look at corrective measures that we can implement from a management perspective. And then the outcomes will be reported daily to the DDG and the DG, the Chief Director permitting. With his team will ensure backlogs are addressed, as well as to prevent the creation of future backlogs. Monitoring will also give leadership oversight of the progress of the backlog plan. And this plan will be something that we'll be utilizing going forward as a permanent tool to manage permitting's permanent residence and temporary residence applications. The next slide, we just talk to the issues of analysis, which will be critical, that we're able to give a weekly analysis as a plan is being rolled out, an analysis after 2 months to give an estimation of how long it'll take to eradicate the backlogs with current officials from the various business units. Also, it will assist to project manage the day-to-day applications with their challenges and risks. Managers from both head office and provinces will be required to conduct random sampling of the work. So whilst we streamline the levels and the adjudication probably be at assistant director level to speed up the processes, there still is a role to ensure that the applications are adjudicated correctly and ethically. So there will be random sampling. We'll be encouraging managers to oversee the work, what's been issued, but to do a random sample just to ensure that the processing has been done correctly and legitimately. The analysis will assist in terms of being able to project the future state of permanent residence and temporary residence applications. Really, the aim is to make the backlogs a thing of the past, but if we find that it's going to be a norm, maybe alternate mechanisms will be looked at to manage workflows. Something such as capping targets or increasing the workforce could be amongst the longer term recommendations. In terms of slide 13, we believe with streamlining some of these processes, we'll be able to show the before and after process maps to demonstrate improvements made in the workflow after the implementation, but in particular of the delegations, highlight specific steps to reduce processing time, and when it's identified and implemented, it will also allow us to implement monitoring and evaluation tools to ensure integrity of documents are not compromised. As I mentioned, the random sampling amongst one of the measures to deal with that. Also looking at the e-visa platforms, look at, maybe some of the low risk categories being adjudicated on that platform, which would ease pressure on adjudicators. So there are low risk of a renewal with credible visitor that could be amongst them, or student visas could be amongst some of those that would consider, but that would come after further analysis. So, Chairperson, the committee is invited to note the presentation. I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Mr. Matthews, for the two reports. Members, these are our two reports, and I invite you to comment on the presentations. The first on the queries raised by members, and secondly, on the last one that Mr. Matthews has presented. Minister, you also, in your response, update the committee in relation to the process on the consequential amendment, so that we're at least on the update on how we're going to deal with this matter, noting that we're already ran out of time and the elections are just on the corner. So if you can update the committee when I'm going to expect, or what are the process now which you are engaged on in line with the line function in cabinet. Members, I'm going to invite and welcome Honorable Hendricks. We're going to invite members to participate, comments on the issues. We'll also start with Honorable Hendricks, invite Honorable Lekwa, Honorable Lekwase, Honorable Rose, Honorable Pillay, and Honorable Kanyile. In that order, Honorable Hendricks.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, the presentation is like a breath of fresh air, and I would like to compliment the department for the tremendous progress that is being made to deal with the backlogs. My National Parliamentary Constituency Office, we receive complaints every day about these backlogs, and we try and deal with them and limit the number of queries that we send to the department. I'm not sure the other matter I wanted to raise, whether it is appropriate to raise it now or ask your permission to raise it at the end of the meeting, or ask you to put it on the agenda of a forthcoming meeting. But the matter is urgent, and it is as a result of your instruction that myself and the Minister of Home Affairs meet with regard to marriage certificates and death certificates. So I just wanted to know if it is possible to get a report on the status of your recommendation at a portfolio committee meeting a few months ago, because there has also been progress, but there has been some bottlenecks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Hendricks, for your contributions. Honorable Malekwa.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Also, let me also appreciate the presentation has been presented. Chairperson, I also want to commend the department on attending to the queries. If you look on the total numbers of the queries of 750 and 534 have been attended, I think it's a milestone. And we also acknowledge the processes that are unfolding in order to attend to the pending 216 queries that need to be attended. I think the department really doing a sterling work on this issue, Chairperson. I just want to take the note of the report as being presented, and I appreciate the performance made by the department. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Malekwa. Honorable Lekwase. Honorable Ross.
Thank you, Chair, and yeah, thank you for these presentations. I think unfortunately we need to do it again and again sometimes. And with the members' queries, you know, we had a deal, and that deal is unfortunately just it's not being honored. So the minister gave us a person to contact, Loreng, and Loreng tries his best, and sometimes it's successful and sometimes it isn't. So the deal was that Loreng would redirect our queries to the relevant officials to free up the DDGs to do their strategic and their day-to-day work. And we're finding that more and more we have to go back to the DDGs now, then to the DG, and then to the minister as we try and get these queries resolved. I think if there's 750, then mine is probably almost all of them. But really, it's actually deteriorated since the last time we met about this, in that we have to go back and say, listen, guys, we sent this thing. Have you received it? Has it been redirected? I end up having to tell clients that they should send an email once a week so that I'm reminded, because we don't have CRM systems where we can see all the cases that are in a case management system and we can see which one hasn't been resolved in that. But to my mind, that is something that a big department like the Department of Home Affairs, and with the tens of thousands of applications they should have that kind of thing. And then there's the issue, Chair, of some people just ignoring these instructions. Now, I've requested on 2 persons already quite a while back to say, I would like a report on why those people ignored the request. They simply, the matters were redirected to them. They absolutely ignored it. And so, Chair, the process is not working. I think the DDGs, when you contact them directly, they are extremely helpful, and they really bend over backwards, bearing in mind that they are not call center operators either. So they are trying their best. But really, Chair, we need to revisit this process that we agreed with the minister. Does it still stand? And if it still stands, then what is going to be done to take it to a level that it needs to be? If we log, I don't expect Loreng to respond within 24 hours, but within a few days at least, within 48 hours. Often these queries are particularly urgent. By the time they get brought to a member of parliament, it's urgent. Persons have already tried all other avenues. There's normally time constraints. So, Chair, we really need to revisit this agreement that we had with the minister on who receives our queries, that when they get redirected, that the people should not be able to ignore it or just not do it, that it gets done. Because these matters drag on, Chairperson, and then we have to come back to the same matter again and again and again every week. Chairperson, there's a few issues that recur, and I think the department should note it, and the one is death certificates. There seems to be a problem with death certificates. These seem to take a long time to resolve. PRPs is another that has been raised in the permits presentation as well. There are numerous PRP applications still in the process from 2016. But I just want to understand how it can take 7 years to process a PRP and what is going on there. And then a critical issue as well of birth certificates. When persons are trying to apply for their parents' birth certificate to prove their nationality, and the department comes back and say, we can't find it. And the question then is what happens? Because the Department of Home Affairs has lost that vault original of the birth certificate. But then the response from Home Affairs is to say, well, too bad. You know, it's sort of shrug your shoulder, we can't find it. And that cannot be, Chairperson. So I want to understand what happens in these cases. What is supposed to happen when the department cannot find a birth certificate? There must be another mechanism to verify that person, because often supporting evidence is given. There's an identity document is given, a passport, but then there's no birth certificate. But then surely Home Affairs can look and say, well, we've issued we can find where we issued that passport, we can find where we issued that, and we can infer that this person was indeed born and these are their details, and provide some sort of a document to the client along with a letter to explain that they've lost it, but they have other verified data for that person. Then in terms of the permits not in the APP, I see we've been given statistics, but merely the overall number of applications and not the percentage that have been addressed in time. So we really need to receive that kind of information to know where we stand. Otherwise, we talk about general backlogs. It's not as surprising to me either to note that spousal visas are very high. And I understand, Chair, that yes, there are marriages of convenience, but we must remember that there are many persons, they've been awarded a spousal visa, they've renewed it, now they're renewing it again. They have a house, they have children, their children are in school, and they wait for years for a renewal. And I think we need to get to a point where we say, if persons really are that established, that we need to find a way to say it can't take several years to renew that spousal visa. And I want to understand if there's any proposals internally, if we're looking at, instead of taking the existing rules that we have and trying to smash through the applications, whether we do what has been done with some of the other visa categories and say, how do we look at specific cases where persons have renewed, or they've already applied and they're reapplying again and they provide certain information. How can we make these go quicker in cases where there's good evidence that it is a real relationship? Because on every one side of a relationship with a South African citizen and a foreign spouse is a South African citizen and their children. And you have crazy cases where because the spousal visa can't be renewed, you have a situation where the mother potentially has to leave the country, this kind of thing. So I just want to understand what is being done in that regard. And then I think another key thing and a problem in permitting that goes back to the members' queries is that the department doesn't have a system, that it doesn't seem to have a system where you say, this application has gone to this person. It's been allocated to them. There's a certain time frame that this action has to take place. If it doesn't take place, it gets escalated. I think you know what I'm talking about, DG. So if I can get an indication of whether the Department of Home Affairs is looking at anything like that. Because from what I see from our members' queries and this, the department doesn't know. If Lorraine sends something on, we'd also said that this should be logged in your case system. He has no idea that it hasn't been looked at for 2 weeks until we remind him. So is the Department of Home Affairs looking at something like that internally to hold people to account and say, well, the application went in this, it went to you, it's been sitting for 4 weeks, you did nothing. But instead of waiting and finding out 6 months later, we find out after 4 weeks, it gets escalated automatically to the line manager to ask what is going on. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Ross, for your contributions. Honorable Pile.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. And Chair, we note the report. Mine is just to say that you cannot have a DG and DDG that almost replies immediately. And then you find that as it is forwarded to the relevant official or staff that's dealing with something, that just doesn't respond. And I think I've raised this time and again in respect of consequence management. And Chair, I think that it's important that the department does implement some kind of consequence management, because you find that the frustration lies after the DDG receives an email or a query, he forwarded that to a relevant official who is dealing with that specific thing. And then you find that there's just no responses, not even to the DDG, not even to members of parliament. And I think it is the most frustrating thing that is happening. And I think it's important that we have to now be able to address that. And then we also previously asked for a spreadsheet in terms of showing us exactly what is outstanding and what has been closed or dealt with. And I think it's important for us to receive that, because then we'll be able to monitor and track that in the right ways. But Chair, we want to appreciate all of the efforts that have been made. and just to be able to put in certain measures that will improve the measures that have been put in place that will improve the systems. I think we cry out loud about backlogs, and I hope that we reach a point where we can say we've actually cleared this backlog. So we must also appreciate when work is being done. And I think we just need to be able to push harder. I'm not sure whether we have enough staff, but if not, Chair, perhaps the department needs to look at how we are able to recruit more staff to be able to assist with the backlogs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Pillay. Honorable Kanyile.
Thank you, Chairperson. We welcome the presentations that are before us. But firstly, I would like to commend the department on both sides, the Civic Services and Immigration, for the great work that they are doing together with Lorraine and Ms. Traven. I believe after our oversight, Ms. Traven was also seconded to attend to our queries. We have been struggling a bit, but I can see that they are trying. And coming to immigration side, I want to appreciate the contribution that was made by Mr. Simons, and also acknowledge that since Mr. Matthews has been brought in, there's been a significant progress, especially when it comes to cases that needs his attention. He tried to respond within reasonable time, whether it's 48 hours or within a week. But I also share the same sentiments with Honorable Pillay. You send an email to the DG or to the DDG or the acting DDG, and when they have to now redirect it to certain officials, then you lose the case because there's no response that is forthcoming. And at times we end up sending lots and lots of follow-up emails, but nobody responds to our emails. I think I'm sitting with about 2 cases that I believe they've been with the department, especially on immigration, for a very, very long time. And this morning I just sent another follow-up messages. I've sent them direct now to Ms. Traven and to Mr. Matthews, simply because the officials that these emails were redirected to, they're not responding. I think the problem that we're sitting with now, it is at that point. And another thing that I have picked up, Chairperson, when it comes to the queries that we as members of parliament end up sending to the DDGs, especially on the civic services, one may sense a lack of training when it comes to the front office staff, because they will turn away members of the community for many years, up to 10 years. There is a case that I'm working on where a community member was turned away for more than 10 years. But when you escalate that case to the DDG, it gets immediate attention. I think we also need to look at that and check if our front staff officials, front office officials, they actually properly trained so that they can know how to handle cases. And yeah, Chairperson, another thing that I want to mention, I think the minister on a number of occasions did indicate that when we need the mobile unit to be sent to certain areas where members of the community are not able to pay for the public transport to get to the nearest offices, we need to make such request. And we have been making such request with my colleague as well, who once appeared before the Portfolio Committee, Honorable Samantha Graham Murray. He has indicated that the response from the department has been very positive, and that they have managed to submit and process many first-time ID applicants, and everything ran smoothly and the applications were successful. The internet was also connecting. I do believe that it's important that we come back before the Portfolio Committee and give that feedback, because we were also complaining previously that we believe that there's something wrong with the mobile units. But so far, we are not having any challenges. Looks like the mobile units are working properly. The last point that I would like to make also on the mobile units. I used to make mobile units requests through Mr. Sigama. He indicated that I need to redirect them to Mr. Mavuso. I am not getting any response from Mr. Mavuso. I don't even know whether he's getting my emails. I don't even know whether he's making those arrangements. At some point, I ended up going to Eastern Cape, and there was no mobile unit that we arranged, and yet the email was sent to him. So I'll appreciate it if Mr. Mavuso can acknowledge the emails and indicate if he is working on the matter. There is one submission or request from Pixley Gaseme. Chairperson, thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kanyile, for your contributions and comments. I see hand, Honorable Pillay.
Thank you very much, Chair. My humble apologies, but I beg your indulgence. I just wanted to, and I completely forgot to mention this, that if we could just fast track the VFS oversight, because it helps with the processes. But one more thing, when we went to our oversight a few months ago, we discussed certain things in respect of the backlogs that was in respect of adjudication and appeals. And one of the things that we did suggest was that we look at how we do not prolong the processes, where it takes months before there is a response. And I know that VFS does not have the mandate to turn away any of the appeals or applications based on a previous court order. But the department does have the mandate to be able to filter through the application and say these documents are missing, and that they respond almost immediately instead of waiting for months on end. I've raised it before that what happens is that you find that people take advantage of that system where they wait for months, sometimes a year or so, and then it is going to be either denied or rejected, and that they just buy time by being able to do these appeals over and over. So it's important if Mr. Matthews will then be able to look at how they introduce a system that that cuts the process short. I must appreciate the effort that he's mentioned about having to change some of the levels so that you don't need to have so many of the levels that need to go through. I think that one is going to go a long way for us. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, members, for your contributions and the issues you've raised on the two reports. I will invite Mr. Matthews to respond on the issues, and the DG, if there will be administrative issues that are raised, to comment, and then the ministry to also respond on some of the issues which are referred. Mr. Matthews?
No, thank you very much, Chairperson. Chair, with your indulgence, I'll allow, could the DG respond? I think I've taken note of the comments. I think a lot of it is following up on the queries that have been referred. And I think there was an issue regarding the type of case management system. We do have types of databases that we are using to track queries through the DG's office on some of those issues raised from Lereng's side. But I think we note the comments and the suggestions for implementation. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Matthews. DG?
No, thank you, Chairperson, and thanks, honorable members, for the questions. No, we do have, Honorable Rose, a system to track those queries. Lereng, in fact, in Cape Town, he's got access to all these systems, so he will be able to track any application from where he is, the system that you are referring to. So we'll just follow up and check why he's not able to respond speedily to some of those queries, because he does have access to systems. I suppose there are areas where we can improve. We do accept that except us dealing with backlogs, there's a need to improve in certain areas. The point that you're making around applications, in particular for some spouses, in the business category, for example, and critical skills, in the engagement that we have with the DTIC, which is a forum where we track some of the business and critical skills, we now group those family applications to make sure that the children are not left outside, including the spouses. So that assists us to track. And if you look at some of those applications, they do ensure that when they are lodged, they refer to the applications by the entire family. So we do accept that there's a need to improve in certain areas, and they will definitely look at that. What is good is that almost, I think all the branches now, they have a dedicated team that's looking at queries, which is why the turnaround times have improved. At IMS, there's a team that's looking at that. At Civics, there's a team that's looking at queries that will come through. And then Honorable Pillay, we can certainly share with you the spreadsheet. I think it's been shared with Liring to share with members of parliament based on what Mr. Matthews has just presented, and we'll continue to update it. The difficulty becomes where you have got queries that require inspectorate to finalize the investigations, and some of them tend to take a bit longer. And then there are instances where verifications, for example, there was a slide that Mr. Matthews showed on banks, and I think in that area we're making inroads. We recently had a meeting with some of the leading banks that have said on a daily basis we can give them a data dump so that they do the verifications instead of us sending them emails. So that's the progress that we are making. We don't have adequate staff. That's the reality. You will recall that this committee, the portfolio committee, actually asked us to put together a business case, which we did. So the first funding for the business case was provided for by Treasury, where we were able to get 742 officials. But you'll recall that the bias was towards civics, and immigration did receive but a small number of officials. We have submitted the second business case to National Treasury, and I suppose members of the portfolio committee are familiar with the fact that we now have a fiscus that's constrained. We're now still waiting for Treasury to give us an indication whether that will be funded. But we are, as Mr. Matthews projected in one of the slides, pulling other resources from other areas to look at where we can deploy. I think Honorable Kanyele will pick up on the conversation that you have said about Mr. Mavuso not responding. But the reality is we do not have adequate mobiles. And I think the minister did say in the budget vote speech that while we are increasing the current ones that are there, in most instances where they're not able to provide you, it's because they are committed to programs, either with basic education or other activities. But where we do have, we do provide. I think this is something that we'll live with until we have adequate mobiles that are currently being manufactured at various plants. So let me pause here for now, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DG, for the responses. Deputy Minister.
No, thank you very much, Chair. Just on three issues. The first one, where we were saying that we are looking at reducing the number or stages of quality assurance. It does not necessarily mean we will be reducing the quality in terms of vetting. It's just an issue of reducing the number of people who have to go through the applications, particularly not on all of them, but on those that are less risky, so that we can try and speed up the process. The second one, I think it has not been raised, but I think it's important that we also remind the committee that on giving us a date for the oversight that was requested when it comes to the issue of VFS. And lastly, just to recommit to the committee, because previously this issue came up that most of the business visas are affecting the issue of the economy, that you will have seen in terms of the presentation, that most of the outstanding are mainly on relatives visas of the people who have already in the country. So they're not necessarily stifling the issue of economic growth. Just those 2 points. The rest, I think they've been sufficiently canvassed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Firstly, I would like to understand from Honorable Gross, because he mentioned the problems with death certificates, and I was listening intently to understand what problem it is, but he didn't elaborate. I'm obviously interested because there is nothing as frustrating as families not able to bury their beloved ones because of home affairs. I would like that type of a situation. And issuing a death certificate is one of the easiest things that we do within a day, as you know, or within the period in which the person has arrived in the office. May I please be favored with details of what the problem is with the death certificate? The other issues, I think the DG has responded to, the issues raised by Honorable Ruas. Honorable Pillay, the issue of recruiting more staff, we will be excited about that because that's what we are looking for. Remember, we're running a department here which had a staff complement of 39% only. And after reporting the business case, at least the Minister of Finance responded and moved us to 42%. The 700 extra workers DG is talking about will move us to only 42%. We've made a plea and a presentation to the President that if the staffing levels at Home Affairs can at least be 60%, we will be very happy. We won't have reached where we have to, but at least it will be much, much better than where we are. Now, as such, the DG tells every time we get a little bit of money to hire people, we send most of the money was skewed towards civics, because where will South Africans get services if they can't get them in their own country? We get skewed towards civics because the identity of people inside the country is also very important, and their everyday work and the facilitation of their everyday work is also important. Now, when we check over the years since the period of democracy, almost every Minister of Home Affairs, whenever they get some bit of resources, they are skewed towards civics. So the issue of migration will sort of suffer a little bit, unfortunately. And we have got no other way of resolving the issue unless we get enough money. But also, Chairperson, as you deal with these things and the backlogs, I also want you to look at the picture globally. We came to you here as members of parliament and presented to you a report by the Lubisi committee. In fact, Dr. Lubisi came himself and reported to you. You might have to consider some of the issues he mentioned. Like he mentioned the issue of forum shopping. As you are asking us why we're having so many backlogs, remember they also discovered this forum shopping where you are dealing with the same person from one country 10 times or more because of forum shopping, meaning what? They try one type of visa. If they don't get successful, we deal with it and respond. If they don't get successful, they try the next one, we deal with it and we respond. If they don't get successful, they try the third one. So you keep on dealing with the same person again and again and again. There is no way that there won't be a build-up of backlogs. And I'm not trying to find an excuse. I just want you to understand the figure globally. That's why one of the recommendations in the Lubisi report is that we might have to re-look at the legislation, why it allows this type of thing. You saw a slide there, flighted by Mr. Mujiri Matthews, that shows the number of visas, spousal, relative, with work, without work, etc. It's one of the things we are looking at when we overhaul the whole immigration system, because we have got 17 types of visas and subtypes as he has put there. Not many countries have got that. We are being attacked for very serious backlog on visas. He has shown you, and people claim that backlog collapses the economy. The economy is not going to move because of this. I heard somebody yesterday, as they were concentrating on the issue of borders, saying that again and again on TV. And I've demanded a right of reply, because most of the things he was saying it's just hot air, that the economy is not moving because of that. Mr. Mudiri Matthews showed you here that out of the 74,000 backlog, 35,000 are spousal visas in section 32, section 11.6. Meaning what? These are people who say, I've got my spouse there in South Africa. I am coming to join my spouse, but I want a job. It's 35,000 of them. I want a job. In a country where you know the issue of unemployment is so high, how do you expect Home Affairs to respond? Because that's exactly what they said. I happen to know, Chairperson, from people who lived in other countries where they are told straight that, yes, come, you can live here because you are employed, but if you bring a spouse here, they are not allowed to work. But we have got subcategories that allows that. And when that person say, I want a job, it's not Home Affairs who is just going to complete that application. We are required, if it's a general work, if the work they are doing is general, if it is a scarce skill, obviously we'll deal with it very quickly. If it's general work visa, the law clearly states that they must go to the Department of Employment and Labor. The department which must then check that this work which you want to perform or which you are being hired for, is there no South African who can do that work? That is in the law, honorable members. Is there really no South African who can do this work? Do you have to get somebody from across the borders to perform this? And the Department of Labor must produce a certificate if they satisfy themselves. And that is a lot of work for them to work towards finding out if there's no South African who can do that work. It's another procedure, which means the procedure in Home Affairs is stuck, waiting for the Department of Labor and Employment to bring that certificate so that we can know that how to process this general work visa. So that's the global view of things. But Chairperson, having said so, the team is trying very hard. We are trying to push them very hard, but do understand that they break their back sometimes. The other thing I want to appeal to honorable members is that as you make presentation because somebody came to you, obviously they expect results because you are honorable members of parliament. You are representing them. Please do consider also that you are not only represent those who have got access to you or who were able to come to you, you also represent the whole population, some of whom don't even know how to approach a member of parliament. But we have got their applications and we have got to deal with them. So as you make queries this side, there are also people who have been waiting, but who have got nowhere to make queries. And I push very hard for my officials to also process those, because otherwise they will be forgotten. You may be aware, Chairperson, that at one stage on immigration, we had some people called immigration practitioners who we have to abolish, because all of them were lining up that any person who goes through them and pay money, they are going to get what they want because they will pressurize Home Affairs officials. We have actually done away with them. But yesterday, I was reading correspondence. There's an immigration lawyer who sent me about 100, if not so, names of people who he said must be dealt with quickly and is threatening court cases and all that, which means if officials stop and do those 100, they make his work, because he's doing this for money, they make his work move much faster. And I know that members of parliament are not paid money to do this work because they are public representatives. So we've got many streams coming because, Chairperson, let's not forget, the demand to come into South Africa for one reason or the other is very high. I must say that it's very, very high. And it will have helped us if, when that demand goes so high, Treasury responds correspondingly. But unfortunately, they are not. And so we are still dealing with the same stuff. Honorable Kanyile mentioned a very, very important point, that we should train front office staff. It is very true. Members of the committee might forget that I've mentioned here in front of you many times, that Home Affairs is doing the same civic job as a police officer or an army officer or a teacher or a social worker is doing. But all those people go for special training. They acquire certain degrees and training to do that work. Home Affairs is the only one that is doing a similar civic job, but there's no school of social work, of Home Affairs. There's no training. And many of them are just using their common sense or trained on the job. Now, 2 weeks ago, I visited Lindela Lindela Center, which many of you have been there. You know, it's a very, very big area. There is a center there which used to be a center for juvenile delinquents who have been sentenced. Juveniles who have been sentenced were not sent to correctional service facilities. They were sent to that center. And there are a lot of training facilities there, computers, classrooms, because these are young people. Some of them are still even attending school. They were doing it right there. Now, that center, the people have been moved at the Department of Social Development to other centers. That center is empty. 3 weeks ago, I visited it because we are trying to convert it into a training center where the front office staff, as Ms. Kanyile is saying, will actually go for training because it's important. The training needs to be done over and over again. I must confess here in front of you, it's not unusual to find a person, member of the public, complaining that they went to Home Affairs to take an ID and they were turned back because they say, we want the biological mother of this child. You can't help this child to take an ID because you're not the biological mother. There is no act which says that. The act simply says an adult informer, meaning an adult person who's going to give information about that child. But you'll find that some of the front office staff don't even know that. So I'm making that, I'm making that concession that these are some of the things that drove us to go and look at areas where we could come time and again and bring people to come for training. I will end with the issue of mobiles, which, Chair, you may remember we told you, we want to make them the main platform now in Home Affairs of providing services, meaning main platform more than static offices, because mobiles are very helpful. They move around, unlike mobile offices where people have to move around using their own money. This one is the government moving around, going to communities. That's why if you check our new mobiles, we write at the back, Home Affairs on Wheels. We have called that program Home Affairs on Wheels, that Home Affairs will come to you. But remember, all throughout the history of Home Affairs, at least after 1994, we've been having 100 mobiles only. We then ordered 20, which will soon be, if not yet, in the field. We have now ordered an extra 100, which are being manufactured in 3 motor manufacturing plants. One of them in Quebec, I visited some 2 to 3 weeks ago. And the problem, honorable members, is that every single mobile must have a generator. I went to the Nissan plant to find out exactly why is the output a little bit low, because the other cars, they are producing very, very fast. Why, when it comes to mobile, they are a little bit slow. They said it's because every mobile needs a generator and they get the generators from Germany. And they said there's a very long queue worldwide of these generators that are needed. So they are also queuing behind other companies and other individuals in the country, but also other countries. Remember, the electricity problem, the power problem is not only in South Africa. We have seen the other day how they said the grid collapsed in Nigeria. So they said getting generators from Germany is a mammoth of a task. It's not a very easy task. I just want you to bear with us and understand that. And but we really ask them to try their best. If we release a mobile and give it to you without the generator, I'm sure members will protest, will get very angry when the time arrives when that generator is needed. So we are trying our best. Some of the cars we have ordered from Toyota and others from Nissan, as I said, and we are all over the country trying our best. And I've already instructed the CFO to make orders for next year now, so that the companies may be able to be in front in front of the queue when they queue for generators in Germany. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Minister, DM, DG, Mr. Matthews, and your team. And thank you very much, honorable members, for having considered to reflect and deliberate on the presentations. We take note of the reports, Minister, but also note the improvement on the issues previously raised by the committee and applaud for progress so far. We note that there are challenges in the course of work, but I think your response at all times, DG, your team on the recommendation of the portfolio committee, we really appreciate the good work that you are always demonstrating with your ministry for the work and the guidance collectively of the portfolio committee. We'll note the issue of the oversight to VFS, and I think Mr. Matonsi will assist us, will communicate with that matter. I would note that we request Mr. Matonsi and Lere, and I hope that Mr. Matonsi has taken some of the notes that has to do with Mr. Lere, who assists members of the public or who are able to deal with them and develop a report that must be submitted to the Director General for him to present to the committee on some of the highlights, weaknesses that we've identified. And I think that will be more important. Members, thanks and the minister and the team will note the report and continuously follow up on the issues that
Chairperson.
Minister?
Chairperson, my apologies. I forgot. You actually asked that I clarify you. It will only take 2 minutes about the consequential amendments.
Yes,
I
Minister.
don't know.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm sorry about that.
No
Yes.
problem. You can proceed.
Yeah, no, Chairperson, the consequential amendments are just waiting for a slot in cabinet. And remember, it's an omnibus sort of bill. We are putting consequential amendments on the Electoral Act. The Electoral Act, which we have the Electoral Act amendment, which we have just passed. We are also doing it on the Political Party Funding Act, which unfortunately, as you know, is still outstanding in Parliament. The original act we are now amending is actually being challenged not in Parliament, in the Constitutional Court. It's still there, but we are still going on to do that. And then there is Elections Commissions Act, and there is also elections communications, the issues about communications. All of them are being amended. We finalized the job. As you know, the senior advocate who was helping us is Badlander. Since he has left the profession, we are left with De Beer. We had a long session with him, Advocate De Beer, last week, and we are satisfied that we are ready to go to cabinet. Immediately the cabinet approves it, we give it to you, and your work will start. So in my thinking, the next cabinet meeting is week after next. And if they agree, we've even tried to negotiate with the president, and we're told to approach him in writing that some of the bills must not go through the other channels because of the Constitutional Court deadlines. When I say the other channels, meaning that you go to this cluster, you go to a cabinet committee, you go to this. So we are trying to negotiate that we take them straight through the cabinet so that you do your work quickly. So at the moment, Chair, in summary, we're just waiting for a nearest slot in cabinet. If the president agrees that we take it there directly, then it will come to you. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Minister, for that progressive update. We really appreciate work that already been done by yourself and your team. We hope you will secure that slot. We are going to send out this item. Mr. Matonzi, is there any other item? Mr. Matonzi?
Well, I'm sorry, Chair, I was muted. I was saying, no, the last one is adoption of the minutes of last week.
Okay, before we go to that item, can we deal with is this our last committee meeting for this term?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, can you then proceed, Mr. Matonsi?
Oh, okay, Chair. Okay, I'm just trying to.
I think Mr. Matonsi, whilst you are dealing with that, so that we don't keep the Minister, DM, DJ, and his team in the meeting. I think this is the item that has to be interacted by the committee. Minister and your team, if you want to stay, you can stay with us, but you want to list you are released to the meeting.
Oh, thank you very much, Comrade Chair. DG, I think we are released. We've got a lot of work to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Martins?
Yes, Chairperson. This is the minutes of last week, where the committee received briefing on the implementation progress on the AB system. On that meeting also, the committee considered the letter from the Chief Justice to fill the IEC vacancy for the position of the commissioner. And then the last one was the draft notice and schedule determining the salary rate of IEC commissioner from April last year until this year, Chairperson. Those are the issues that we dealt with last week. The minutes were sent last week. And then here are the members who were in the meeting, Chairperson.
Okay, members, these are the minutes. Can I invite comments?
Chair, move for the adoption of the minutes.
Move for the adoption. And Ross, seconder?
Chairperson, just you called for amendments.
Yes,
So
sorry, Ronald.
Yeah, Chair. So first of all, there in 8.1, there's reference to Byte, but the company is called Bytes, so it's just to add an S to this Byte.
You say 8.1.
8.1. So in the third line there, hardware and Byte responsible for software. So it's Bytes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there's another one a little bit lower there.
Okay.
And then, Chair, there was a very important, I'd raised the issue, and it has been captured here, that I raised the issue of security of the biometrics database and that. And then there was a commitment by Mr. Mavuso to engage with me offline. So apart from the fact that I'm still waiting for that engagement, it does need to be minuted there, because it wasn't minuted that he'd committed to engage with me offline about due to the sensitivity of it.
No. Okay. We can't minute it in the minutes. All of us, we know that security measures that we can articulate on the public. And we all know that point. So we can't minute it.
To give me the information offline.
Yes, but we can't minute it because in the summary, I've indicated that it's a security sensitive measure that was to deal with outside the meeting. So can't say it's a decision of the committee that there was a commitment, whereas we know ourselves as members of parliament that there are certain closed sessions that we can't deal with. So we'll allow Mr. Matonsi to assist Honorable Ross to follow up with DDG Mavuso on the bilateral outside this meeting, because the report won't be submitted to this committee. It will be the report of members of parliament. It will be up to Honorable Ross and DDG Mavuso to hold that conversation they will be having as confidential, but not meant to the public, also to the members of the committee. So let's leave it at that point.
Okay, that's
Can
fine.
we carry up? Okay, thank you. Mr. Matonzi, assist Honorable Ross on that matter with DDG Mavuso. Honorable
Yes, I'll
Pillay
do
is,
that.
yeah, Honorable Pillay is moved for the adoption. In second. I guess with amendments, Honorable Ross, we are moving for the second with amendments made. And can I invite seconder to the report?
Chair, I'll second the minutes. It's fine.
Thank you, Honorable Ross, seconding the minutes. This is the only minutes that we're dealing with Mr. Matonzi?
Yes, we are up to date, Chair.
Okay, thank you, and also welcome Honorable Kota for coming back to the meeting, and also for having recovered. We witnessed your attendance in the last parliamentary session. Mr. Matonzi, there are two issues we must meet to deal with. Is a VFS oversight, and also the oversight in the Lindela, which we committed. So we'll subject that matter to administrative to MENCO. We'll then finalize the date, and then we'll also finalize the program of the second term, so that we're also including the consequential amendment. And I'll advise that you also communicate with the chair of chairs, so that during the period of constituency period, we were also allowed to proceed with the process of the consequential amendments. Is there an announcement, Mr. Matonzi?
No, Chair, that's all from my side, Chairperson.
Okay. Thank you, members. Our meeting stands adjourned.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, colleagues.